How much do you know about Mississippi? Would you believe that it is a place where cryptids thrive? Let's set aside all preconceived notions and search the woods of Mississippi together. Welcome back to Mississippi Monsters. Guys, y'all have blown me away with the last episode that I've put up a little over a week ago, and it was all about the dog man in Mississippi. As of right now, we have a little over 200 views on that episode, and I have dramatically increased the sub count. Thank y'all so much. All y'all that have been commenting on those videos, talking about how y'all instantly subbed, sharing those videos. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank y'all. And for everybody else just tuning in to this episode, which is going to be episode 6, please just like, share, comment, and please subscribe. Like I was mentioning in my other videos, or my last video, I'm trying to hit 100 subs by September. That is my goal. By the end of September, having 100 subs. I want to build this channel so I can do more with it. And my plans are to start a weekly podcast, but as I've said before, I've got to make it worthwhile. Gotta make it worth putting my time into doing these podcasts. I'm already doing the research. I'm passionate about that. I'm enthusiastic about finding out more information about all these cryptids here in Mississippi. But here's what I'm wanting to do. I'm wanting to create a platform dedicated to Mississippi. There's other platforms that are just dedicated all throughout all these other different states, all throughout the world. But Mississippi's my home state. I want to focus here. So, today we're going to be getting into a subject that everybody thinks is more cryptid than it should be. And that is the Black Panthers in Mississippi. And I just don't quite understand it. Why do people still believe that these felines are so mysterious or are so closely related to other cryptids? I still have yet to understand it. I mean, we have had trail cams capture these large cats. We've had hundreds of sightings within the past few years of these cats, especially here in Mississippi, and I'll get into that a little bit later. I surely don't understand, or can't believe that people can't just simply acknowledge this. There are large cats here in Mississippi, and they're not bobcats. It's just crazy. But I guess growing up, being in the hunting community, being in rural Mississippi, I've always heard of these tales of people being in the woods hunting, especially later in the morning or early in the morning, and hearing these calls ring out of like these women in distress. Just it sends a chill up your spine, especially when you're miles in the middle of the woods and you know for a fact ain't nobody else around you, and from 30 yards away you hear this loud scream. And you're up in a tree, or you're in a ground blind, or you're just in a shoot house. I mean, that can be unnerving, to say the least, but it's just one of those things here in Mississippi. Whenever you go hunting, you have a chance or a possibility of running into one of these creatures. It's not a secret. It's not something that is hush-hush. I mean, everybody understands, or that is in rural Mississippi, that's not a wildlife biologist, quote-unquote, knows that these creatures exist. They've seen them. I mean, it's not even a taboo subject like Bigfoot or Dogman. Everybody understands that Black Panthers are here in Mississippi, and it's just crazy. Now, I guess if you want to call it my sighting or my encounter, this happened whenever I was earlier, a young teenager. Happened between the year 2000 and 2002. I can't exactly put my thumb down on exactly when that date was, but it was just an average, ordinary day, and I didn't mark it on a calendar. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. because I mean it's everybody sees them. But the one time I did happen to see one, I was actually hunting on private property in a newly well, it was a pine thicket that had been planted probably about 6 or 7 years, and so the pines was roughly about anywhere between 10 to 15 foot tall. And I was hunting in one of those lanes. It was where two lanes intersected, so it formed like an intersection. So I had four lanes I can actually look down, and I threw my pop-up blind right there. And all a pop-up blind is just like a camouflage tent that you can let down, that has four walls, and you can let down the windows so you can be able to hunt out of them or shoot out of them. And so I was on my chair, just looking around, scanning. It was right around 6:15, 6:20, so the sun hadn't exactly popped up over the trees yet. But I saw a doe and a fawn cross one of these open areas, that one of these lanes. That's what we call them. I just want to make sure y'all understand what's going on here. A doe and a fawn crossed one of these lanes, and so I was like getting excited. I knew I was going to be able to see deer. It was going to be a good hunt. I had that feeling. Then after they went from tree line to tree line, they crossed the lane. Within maybe a minute or two, I happened to catch this silhouette on the edge of the wood line, walking the same steps that doe and her fawn took, and then it crossed the lane. Well, what caught my eye, what really drew my attention, was just how long the tail was and just how black this cat was. I have seen bobcats. I have seen multiple bobcats, and it's unmistakable. You will know a bobcat when you see it. It's light brown. Some of them have spots. I mean, you know what a bobcat is, especially it doesn't have a long tail. It has a nub. So whenever that long tail just started flickering, and that cat's head was basically sniffing the ground, trying to figure out where the doe and fawn had went, and it just basically just pranced across the lane. It took my attention, and I could see exactly what it was. I could see the size of it. It was roughly the size of the fawn that had just walked across. So it wasn't a huge cat, but it was it was good size, especially with me being in that ground blind. If it wanted to come through that ground blind, it was going to get through it. I mean, it was nothing but canvas. But that was my sighting, and I told everybody that was at the hunting lodge when we came back from hunting, and it was no big deal. It was just a really cool sighting, and everybody was glad I got to be able to see it, and no harm happened. But throughout that hunt, I had seen over 15 deer. And so that was an amazing hunt for me, because back then you just didn't see that many deer. Deer wasn't as plentiful back then as they are now. And so it was an amazing hunt for me. The reason I didn't take no deer is because I was hunting for a buck. We had already had some meat in the freezer, so I was wanting to kill a buck. And all I saw was either spikes, does, yearlings, and I want to say there may have been some 4-pointers, but that to me was not worth using a bullet over. And especially, I didn't want to get in trouble either. But that was my sighting, and I didn't really think, it was special to me, because I got to see a black panther. I got to see one of these creatures that all these hunters are talking about. And all these men that I had a lot of respect for, what they was telling me that was in those woods, that meant something to me because of how special it was. But I didn't think it was some mysterious thing or some taboo subject. I was just proud of being able to see one. But like so many other hunters, so many other people that live out here in rural Mississippi, this is not something that's weird. I mean, I'm just going to be frank with y'all. This is not weird. The Black Panthers here in Mississippi is just another creature that exists. That's what it is. But if you talk to any type of wildlife biologist, all they want to do is just argue with you and say that there is no proof, there's no existence, they just cannot come to terms with this actually living here in Mississippi. And I just scratch my head and wonder what's going to take for them to realize they exist. More trail cam footage, more tracks, more people coming forward saying that they see these things. Look, I've got great respect for biologists. They help us with the deer population. They help us with the squirrels, with the dove population. It's just overall management of the game that we have here in Mississippi. When it comes to identifying what creatures live here in Mississippi, I ain't got no use for them. Okay, when it comes for management, yeah, but when it comes for identification, they can just keep themselves in their offices and keep their noses in their books, because frankly, I don't think they want to acknowledge anything or any new creature living here. So that's just my opinion, but we're going to keep moving forward. Now, when it comes to a lot of people talking about these creatures, these black panthers or these large black cats living here in Mississippi, there's been a lot of different people saying that there could be a possibility of a large cat living here. I mean, we don't live that far from Florida, and we all know that Florida has these swamp panthers. Everybody knows that. They acknowledge it, and they're roughly about the same size, just like a mountain lion and a puma. They're all pretty much the same size as these black panthers that are being seen here in Mississippi. The size is roughly about the size of a large Labrador. I was looking at a news clipping, and that's what the guy exactly said. It was roughly the size of a large Labrador, except the head was smaller. But the tail is all right. When it comes to a cat, we've all went to zoos. We've all seen it on the Discovery Channel and all these other shows like that. A tail of a cat is a whole lot more agile and can be moved a whole lot more easily than a tail of a dog. So whenever you see that tail flicker and just moving back and forth, you know that it's not a dog. A dog's tail is very different. Quite different. So, but it's roughly the same size of a Labrador or a small fawn or yearling deer that still has spots on it. But the thing is, you're not seeing a puma, you're not seeing a mountain lion, you're not seeing one of these swamp panthers because of the color. When people see this black panther, they're seeing a large black cat. They're not seeing something brown. They're not seeing something dark brown. They're not seeing something with spots. They're not seeing anything else. They're seeing a large black cat. That's what they're seeing. That's what I saw. And so whenever people try to say, well, maybe there are large cats in Mississippi, maybe they're these other creatures. They're not, people. They're honestly, they're not. But it could be a swamp panther that has a color variation where they have just they have adapted with the black color. Well, guess what, folks? If a swamp panther has black fur, what is that? It's a black panther. And that's what just, it really gets under my skin if you can't already tell that right now. But another thing a lot of people try to theorize is that it could be a black jaguar. Well, the thing is, jaguars are one of the largest cats or largest felines in the world. And jaguars can roughly be 130 pounds to 200 pounds. The panther I saw was nowhere near that size. It was real lean. It was nowhere near as big as a jaguar. And so these creatures are just, they're not that big. but they are big enough to garner concern. Put it that way. And they're bigger than a bobcat, bigger than any bobcat I've ever seen, which our bobcats around here can get pretty big. But the thing is, what we're seeing is a black panther, something totally unique, something unique by color, something unique by size, and something unique by how long the tail is and how it moves. I can't right now think of the term that you would actually use for that, being able to move that appendage like it has, but it's not like a dog. It can actually move the tail more fluidly and from the base all the way to the tip, rather than a dog just wagging it back and forth like an otter tail. But anyway, a lot of times people want to say they get these creatures or these black panthers confused by their sound. One of the biggest telltale sounds of a black panther is whenever it's either mating season or it's trying to intimidate something else, and it's the call. It sounds like a woman being killed. I mean, it's this long, drawn-out cry, just screaming, and it is unnerving. And a lot of people have heard it, especially whether you're in the swamps, you're in these little bitty woods that are in the hills. It doesn't really matter where you are. These cats are everywhere. But these sounds, they just echo. And there was one hunting property that I was a member of, and we hunted in these hills, and I promise you, whenever you hear that cat cry out and it echoes through those hills, these long drawn out cries, screams, it's eerie, especially whenever you get into the stand around 5:30 in the morning. You can't see nothing, you're there all by yourself, it's cold, and you're hearing limbs break and everything coming around you, and then one of these creatures just cry out. Oh my goodness, you just it's it's crazy, but you know what it is. You don't want it in the shoot house with you or the stand with you, but it can get pretty hairy. But thinking about it it's pretty funny. But a lot of these people think that we're hearing something and we're misidentifying it. And a lot of times what they're trying to say is that it's either a fox or a bobcat or a screech owl. I've been in the woods pretty much ever since I was born. That's just what we do. We enjoy outdoors. My whole family enjoys the outdoors. And so I've heard a fox cry out. I've heard bobcats cry out. I've even heard rabbits, when they get attacked, how they cry out. I've heard a screech owl. Now, a funny story about a screech owl. I was four-wheeler riding in the middle of the woods with a bunch of people, and a screech owl just blasted probably within 10 yards of me and then flew across my face, because we startled it, then it startled us, and I almost lost it right then and there. I ain't gonna lie. But the thing is, whenever you hear these sounds, you hear what a fox sounds like, all the way to a screech owl. It's unmistakable. They're not the same sounds. A fox sounds like a dog. It sounds like a dog crying out. That's what a fox sounds like. And we're not mistaking these sounds. You can pull it up on YouTube and you can listen to these sounds for yourself and search these sounds. There is a distinct sound. And another thing that a lot of people try to say we're messing up on is the sound of a great heron. The sound that they make when they're mating, whenever they're fussing at predators trying to come disturb their nest. These sounds are totally different. You cannot mistake them if you know them. And these are experienced hunters that are reporting these sounds. They're not mistaking the sounds that they hear every time they're in the woods. They're not mistaking them. And so, I mean, there might be a possibility of a few. But the thing is, when you hear a panther cry out, you're not mistaking that sound. Point blank. I'm telling you, it's quite differently. But as I said, these panthers, they're all over the state. I live here in central Mississippi, and I know the sound. I've seen it myself. And there are so many other people here in central Mississippi that are hunters, that are farmers, that are people that work in the forestry industry. They've seen these creatures. It's not a taboo subject to just bring up and say, well, man, have you ever seen a black panther? And then somebody across the store said, yeah, I've seen one before. Or, yeah, my granddad told me about it one time. Or my papa or my uncle or somebody else they've seen it before. And that's the thing that we have to wrap our heads around it, because these creatures are real. Just because a wildlife biologist says they're not, that doesn't validate their existence. And that's what I basically had to come to terms with all these other cryptids. Just because the scientific community does not acknowledge these other creatures does not mean or does not take away from the actuality of these creatures existing. And so I've had to accept that with a black panther, how wildlife biologists say, well, no, these creatures don't exist. But I've seen it for myself, just like I've seen the Bigfoot creature. And I'm not going to just say, well, the science is unclear. They haven't been identified here in Mississippi. I'm not going to accept that, because I know what I've seen. I know what I experienced. I know what people or men that I have high respect for, what they've seen, what they've experienced. And I'm not going to take that away from there. Just like all these other cryptids. But the folks, here's the bottom line. You're either going to believe it or you're not. Either you're going to believe my encounter, you're going to believe other people's encounters, or you're not. And my show is not about bringing evidence or proof to the world. That's not what it's here to do. I've gave up on that journey. I've gave up trying to prove that things exist in the woods that other people don't want to believe. So I'm not going to try to prove it. All I'm going to do is talk about the experiences that I've had, experiences that people have had and they've told me about it, and just try to shed light on it. I'm just trying to understand it better, and I'm enjoying the process of doing that. And that's what this is. That's what this show is all about. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I'm already into a good 20-something minutes into this show, so I'm just going to leave it there. And until next time, just remember, there are boogers in those woods. Good night.